Sean Summers, on the morning of the release of financial results that the market did not like. Although, to be fair, on Friday, the share price was up 12%. This morning, it's down 8%. This is pretty volatile for a big company like yours.
It certainly is, and we don't live by the day, Alec. You know, I think share prices, I always say this philosophically, they're like boats. They're really two important days, the day you buy and the day you sell. Everything else in between, it's just commentary.
But what happened? What would have caused the overreaction on Friday and then the, I'm sure, readjustment again this morning?
You know, Alec, I think you've got to look at it over a term. You've got to look at it over a year, over 6 months. You can't just look in a matter of days or a week. There's been a lot of issues at play. Obviously, we had the Boxer sell down and the changes that took place then. Speculation. We put out a trading update on Friday. There may have been a bit of overreaction the one way on the trading update on Friday, and then the actual numbers arriving today. So if you look on balance, the share price is actually up. So if you go back to Friday, deductive what's here today, the share price is in fact up.
Yeah. I guess certainly the reason that's been given today is that you have postponed the break even for Pick n Pay until 2029. We can talk about that in a moment, but maybe just give us background for people who are outside and looking at Pick n Pay, members of the Ricardo, guys who've invested in the company through the Ricardo portfolio, our Ricardo portfolio. It's really a story of two businesses. You've got a fantastic business in Boxer and then a business that's needing a lot of TLC in the core Pick n Pay brand. And that's really why you were brought in. But when you look at those two, you're selling the one down to fund the other.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, Alec. You know, Pick n Pay moves into its 60th year next year. It's 59 years old. But I would argue this company is basically really only 2 years old. And why would I say that? To all intents and purposes, in March 2024, this company basically fell over. I mean, we maxed out all of our facilities, breached all of our covenants, and we were in a fortunate situation that we had value in Boxer. And I said at that stage, in fact, I remember making the prediction. I said, sadly, we're going to most probably end up burning somewhere between 6 and 10 billion rand of the Boxer value that was created in turning Pick n Pay around. So, you know, Pick n Pay as a company is still a great company. It has its challenges, but it is still a great company. It's still a very, very well-loved and respected business in South Africa. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing the volume of sales that we're doing. The fact that there are some things that are a bit out of kilter or way out of kilter in terms of its cost base and various other issues and what have you does not mean that is necessarily the end of the road for Pick n Pay. So I would argue this is actually a new business and this is the investment phase. The most important thing for me is where is Pick n Pay in 2030, in 2035, and in 2040? Is Pick n Pay still there? And is it the leading supermarket chain in South Africa? It's not going to be the biggest. That race is done. But for me, that's the important part of what the journey is for Pick n Pay. Otherwise, it would not have been impossible for Pick n Pay to have gone the route of other retailers before it. You know, we had the famous OK Bazaars, 1 rand. We've had a chain like Studderford's, bang, gone. You know, even Edgar's today, I mean, it's but a smidgen of what it was. So our journey is to ensure that Pick n Pay endures, that it remains a point of employ and creating jobs for people in this country, and that 3rd and 4th generations can work for Pick n Pay one day. So in terms of that journey that you're on, you really have to dial out the noise. And, you know, the market, as we know, you know, the market lives almost by the hour, never mind by the day. So, you know, one has to have a medium to longer term perspective of it, dial out the noise, never lose the faith, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, understanding what the journey is.
I spoke to one of your major suppliers, and he said, you guys are doing good stuff there, which is the first time I've got that feedback. I like to do that before interviews like this, to speak to those who are where the tacky hits the tar. Can you tell us what what you're seeing from your perspective on the turnaround story?
Absolutely, Alec. When you look at how everything is starting to get tightened up, and you look at the persona of Pick and Pay, the company, our whole platform now where we say, come home to Pick and Pay, getting the blue stripes on the background, getting our corporate identity sorted out, getting who we are sorted out. And as I've quoted before, that conservative English philosopher Roger Scruton, who said, great things are easily destroyed, but not so easily built. We have to be honest with ourselves. Pick and Pay, to a large degree, was destroyed from within. And you've got to front up to these realities, and then you just have to deal with it, and you have to get on with it. So if I look at where we are now, and that's universally the feedback I'm not only getting from suppliers, I'm getting it from landlords, I'm getting it from all over the market, where they're starting to see now that Pick and Pay is fronting up, that Pick and Pay is showing up. And despite the fact that we are still loss-making as a company, you do not save a company but just retreating back into your shell like a little hermit and what have you. That is never going to get you out there. You've got to approach life positively, constructively, and you've got to engage life in all of its elements and in all of its facets. You've got to engage the good things, and you have to confront the tough things that you need to do. So the good foundation that we are setting at the moment in the company of doing all of the basics right and reinstilling our corporate muscle memory, because we'd lost our muscle memory. Corporations are like sportsmen. They have a muscle memory. They know what they do. They very importantly know what they don't do. And we've been working assiduously at doing all of these things and continuing to invest in the business. So don't look at this billions that have been burnt purely as a loss. It's an investment in the future.
It's like a new company, as you say. That's a nice way to have a look at it. But that new company has inherited quite a lot of challenges, legacy challenges, and the big one is labor. And you're in the process at the moment. Just help us to understand exactly what you're going through from your perspective.
Correct. Our business and the biggest portion of our outgoing expense on labor in the company is obviously in the operations. It's in the stores, it's in the distribution channel, and that's where the bulk of our expense is in the company. And when I returned, this was apparent. The whole market said to me, Sean, you will never ever fix Pick and Pay until you find some rebalance in its cost of labor and its employment practices. But when I had a look at Pick and Pay, Alec, there were so many elements and dimensions in the company that needed remediation, that needed to be fixed. Now, you cannot do everything at once. If we tried to do every single solitary thing at the same time, we would just have snapped the company in two like a twig, and it would have been gone. So you have to sequence these things. And in order to get to deal with these issues, you have to reinstate some belief in the company again. You've got to get a heartbeat back in the company again. You've got to get a sense of belonging, a sense of loyalty back in the organization again. Now, stepping into the labor, I mean, I called this out. I think it was the 4th of December, 2023, when I came back. At my first national plenary session with the union and our national shop steward body, I raised this very issue of us having to deal with this going forward. And we have been in discussions for the last 2.5 years. And sadly, we have not made progress in this regard. And we were ultimately left with no option eventually other than to take firm action to get us into a consultation process that we could have meaningful material discussions with outcomes. You can't just meet, have another discussion, and there's no outcome. That doesn't achieve anything because the clock is ticking. And it is something that we are dealing with at the moment. And these are the very people, okay, who are our people. 99% of the people in this company, Alec, are beautiful. They are great. They love Pick and Pay. And trust me, Pick and Pay loves them. Okay. But this is something that we need to do. And our people know, almost like the famous Kennedy. The time has arrived now where we need to ask of ourselves, what is it that we can do for Pick and Pay? Because for 59 years, Pick and Pay has been doing it for us. It's been looking after its people very, very well. And a lot of the concessions that were made with the best and the purest of intentions. but with the passage of time, they became unaffordable. So, we now have to ask of ourselves, what is it that we can do for Pick and Pay? And what is it that we need to do to ensure that our company does endure and that my children can also end up working for this company?
Healthcare matters, but what matters most?
Having cover for the people who keep this business going.
Bonitas is there for you when it counts. Bonitas, medical aid for South Africa. Visit bonitas.co.za and find your plan.
It makes me think a little about South Africa as a whole, where we have a public service in South Africa that has been incredibly well remunerated over a period of time, and it just compounds. And eventually you're stuck in a situation where it's just not workable anymore. Are there any concessions being given by the labor, organized labor, that maybe we are out of kilter with the rest of the market, and that maybe Summers is coming in with a plan that we could work with, cut wages perhaps, and then keep more people employed? Is there that kind of flexibility?
Well, so we are in that very consultative process at the moment, Alec. We've already tabled what we believe is a reasonable scope of concessions that we would seek. And I'm sure that through the consultative process that we will find each other and that we will get this settled. And it's nothing unreasonable, because all that we are asking, okay, is to basically be competitive with our major competitors in terms of our employment conditions and practices. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for anything that's unreasonable. And I'm sure that we will find each other. So as I say, we're in the consultative process. One doesn't litigate these things in the public space. You just sit down quietly around a table. And now, because the 189 process is in place and it sets the 60-day timeline, and we have the CCMA now overseeing or shepherding this process, I'm sure that we will get common sense to prevail.
Could there be another big hit with retrenchments?
No, Alec, there should not be. There should not be. That's not the goal. This is nothing about, we don't want to lose a single job. The sad reality is that in the store closures that we've had to do, the nearly 90 odd stores across the whole group that we've had to close in the last 2 years, there's over 2,500 people that sadly have had to be retrenched. We want to stop that. We're living in a country that has rampant unemployment. I mean, you look at the number of jobs lost in the last quarter, I think it was just under 350,000. The last thing we can afford in this country is job losses. And this is not about job losses, Alex. This is about trying to maintain stable, reasonable employment going forward. And when we have a look in this country today, there are a lot of good things that are happening in this country today. And yes, one can have positions on government and all of those things. But, we have a Department of Labor. There's an SD9 laid down terms and conditions of employment in this country. Okay. And we employ very, very generously within that. And what we are proposing will still be within that. So we're not seeking to do anything at all that is unreasonable. And we're not seeking to see jobs get lost in Pick and Pay. To the contrary, we want to maintain employment in the company, and we want to get Pick and Pay back strong and healthy so that we can start growing again and start creating jobs again, as we are doing in Boxer.
Talking about Boxer, you're down to 53% now, with another 4 billion odd that you raised through another capital placement. Is that it? Would you go below 53%?
No. Our intention is to maintain control of Boxer. We certainly believe that with the strength that we have in the balance sheet now, that we're in a strong situation as a company going forward to see our way through back into a break even and then getting back into a profit situation again. One cannot guarantee. I mean, we don't know what exigencies arrive if there's some black swan event, but unless there's a black swan event, we believe that on the trajectory that we're on, with all of the initiatives that we have in place and the good work that we can see coming to the fore, comes back to your call earlier to one of our suppliers about what's going on at Pick and Pay. And they say there's a lot of good stuff happening there. There's lots of cool stuff happening here. And I mean, you just go around the stores, and again, it comes back to our people. We love all of our people. I love every single person that works for this company, because I know that they're all loyal and they all see the mission that we're on.
But I guess whenever you have labor negotiations, that can derail even the best interaction between management and staff. Is that a real risk?
No, Alec, you know, in life, it's easy to talk tough, okay? It's another thing to do tough. And what we are doing now is doing tough, because these are tough discussions, but they are necessary discussions. You know, you have a responsibility as a leader, okay, to front up to the realities that you are confronted with, okay? Because by merely obfuscating and ducking the other way and what have you, you are not going to solve the problem, okay? And you're not going to create a stable environment for your people to have a future. And then you sit in a situation such as happened in many organizations. I mean, you look in an Edgar's, for example, you know, leadership and managed there didn't stare into some of the realities that they had. And next thing, bang, the whole thing falls over. Okay. So these responsibilities are material. And in the world that we live in today, there is no shortage of your couch critics and TikTokers and YouTubers and all of these people that are out there. It's like when we go to our beloved football or our rugby match to go and watch our beloved Springboks, and it never ceases to amaze me that there are 30 idiots on the field and 60,000 geniuses in the grandstand. Okay. And you know, that's life, buddy. That's life. So you just ignore it. You just dial out. You take on board what is important and deal with it. But you have a duty of care, and you have a duty of honesty with your people. And in your people, it's everybody. It's the people that work for this company. It's the customers that shop in the store. It's society in general. You have that duty of care.
Is it taking you longer to turn around than you anticipated before you stepped back in?
Yes. To be honest, yes. I said it was going to be a multi-year journey. In fact, Shane Watkins most probably had it better. I said it would take sort of round about 3 odd years. And he said, why are you putting pressure on yourself? I think it will be closer to 5. So he's most probably going to be right at the end of the day. But the actual quantum, when I said we're going to burn 6 to 10 billion of the value created in Boxer, bearing in mind we paid 185 million for an asset that's now worth 40 billion. The sad thing is we've had to take some of that value to save Pick n Pay. But you know, Alex, if Pick n Pay had fallen over, if you take the liabilities that this company has in terms of its leases, its contractual obligations, all of that thing, well, you know what would have happened? Okay. The company would have been basically wound up, and there would have been nothing left for the shareholders. It would have been gone. So this notion that you take in this money to just burn it away and what have you, no. We take in the money to invest back in the business again, to create a new business for the future, because it is like a new business. And you know, the sins of the fathers, you're paying the price for decisions that were both taken and not taken by previous levels of leadership that we have in the company. And that's the reality. So just get on with it and get it done.
Are you comfortable now that you've got a complete and proper handle on things, and that there's not going to be, in the absence of a black swan, there's not going to be something else popping out of the woodwork which is going to further delay the turnaround?
No, I don't think there should be anything that should come out that will further delay the turnaround. When you have a look at the growing confidence within the organization, I mean, why do the suppliers say to you what they say to you? Because they can see that in the leadership in the company, and I'm talking operationally, Alec, okay? For me, the most important thing is what's left behind post me, that this company has a strong leadership infrastructure that can run an organization 24/7, 365 days a year. And that's what we're looking to build up again and have been building up again. And that's why the suppliers and everybody is now starting to get confidence, because they can see it coming. Landlords can see it coming. They can see in the new stores again that we can run stores as well as anybody, anywhere. And that's what we're rebuilding back into the company again.
One day, I'm sure you're going to sit down and write your memoirs, and you'll talk about the first stint at Pick n Pay and the second one. And when you compare the two, would this one be a lot more challenging?
For sure. No memoirs. I always said I'm not writing the book. Short, it'll be more challenging. There's there may be a tougher job for a CEO in South Africa at the moment. I don't know. I can't think of one really that jumps to mind. But you just deal with it and get on with it. Yeah. So it depends on whether you like a challenge or not. I happen particularly the challenge doesn't worry me at all, because I'm surrounded by the most extraordinary people. There's a team that has now come together in this organization and that has grown. And I think that the best thing that you can ever have in life is to see people achieve things that they never believed they could achieve. And that's how you grow a team. You know, ordinary people achieving the extraordinary. That's what it's about at the end of the day.
Before we go, Sean, we've seen what's happened to the petrol price due to what's occurring in the Middle East. Has that impacted the South African consumer? And I ask this because your inflation of your internal food inflation is below the overall inflation. It's about half, which suggests that maybe you cutting your margins, but your margins at the bottom end are going up. Perhaps that's because of more efficiency.
Yes. So it's more efficiency, better management of the margin mix, Alex. We've had significant deflation in the basic categories of merchandise, which has had a huge effect. You'll see that in Boxer, it's even more marked because of their basket that they have. And despite the fact that they've had that very low level of inflation and in some major categories deflation, they still managed to produce the results that they've produced because they've just run their business that much harder. But the truth, Alec, is that when you have a look at the effect of diesel prices, and the major concern for all of us is with taxi fares going up and commuting going up, you know, sadly, for a lot of people in this country, just getting to work and back takes up 20-25% of their take-home pay. So I think that there's going to be a short-term knock of what's going to start feeding into the marketplace. Inflation is obviously going to be an issue, which presents a short-term challenge because, you know, it's quite difficult initially to recover the inflationary impact that happens, because we can already see from suppliers that there's starting to come now requests for price increases and the like. But this is not our first rodeo. We lived through this before.
You're coming to the Drakensberg in August. I'm really looking forward to hearing you there. 3 months on. What might you have learned then that you don't know now? In other words, what's in gestation, which is going to be influencing the keynote that you give us there?
I'll see you in August, Alex. 12 weeks is a long time. 12 weeks is a long time. You said to me it was going to be a fireside chat. So we will gather there, Alec, because I respect your community and the community that gathers for that. It's obviously a large part of the investor community, and it's very, very important in the role that I have as CEO, Pick n Pay, that I have to manage for many communities. You know, I have to manage very importantly for the shareholder community and make sure that they stay the journey and stay invested in the journey and see that there is value to come on the upside in Pick n Pay. And obviously, it's not cool when you come to work every day and you're running a business that's losing money. So I have to manage that community very assiduously. I have to manage the internal community and all of our people in the company, that they don't lose faith. Very importantly, I have to manage our customer community as well, because customers also have a view of the organization that they come to shop in. So coming to the Drakensberg, I see that as a very important part of that role, is keeping everybody in the tent.
Sounds like you could have gone to another tent and been a juggler with all of those different communities that you have to manage. But Sean Summers, thank you for sharing a part of your journey again with us today. Sean Summers is the Chief Executive of Pick n Pay. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.